Emily Musolf, welcome to the show. Nice to have you again, this time without your better half. Um,
Yeah, he's still
be-
roaming around here. He went to go get some coffee.
um, because we're gonna talk about your project.
Mhm.
Can you take us through the quick background of your martial arts journey and where are you ending up now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started training in 2001. I was 11 and I started training at the very dojo that we currently own. So we were lucky enough to be able to provide that, continue on that legacy. I got my black belt in Shotokan karate at 16. And then I continued on to become an assistant instructor and then an instructor and so on and so forth. So I've been doing it for I've been doing martial arts for a long time. And then as I got old enough after going through college and things like that, I ended up trying different styles and things like that too. So I also train in Wing Chun. We've done some Goju-Ryu, we've done uh Hakaru, um probably a little bit of everything to be honest with you. So it's nice to be able to explore that once you get your black belt. I think it opens up a whole new world of being able to understand martial arts. So it's just been a lifelong journey of learning and continuing to share that with students. So so yeah, so I've been about martial arts for a long time.
So what made you to stick with karate?
Um, well, I took once I got my black belt when I was 16, I ended up having a break. So I went to college, life happened, I ended up getting married, getting divorced. And it there was always something that was missing. And so it wasn't until I ended up coming back where I was like, this was it. Like it was the one thing that was missing in my life that gave me stability both mentally and physically and even emotionally. So martial arts was a huge part of my journey growing up, and I felt that through the years that I wasn't doing it. And so coming back to it was that was a very pivotal moment into learning, understanding, and being able to share that with other people too.
You're obviously working, I think from last conversation, you've been starting the project with a self-defense for the women,
Mhm.
and that is a big area of your expertise and something that you enjoy and you drive into it, isn't it? Can you tell us about your projects and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. So we more recently got approved to be a nonprofit, and it is providing self-defense to women survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. But our martial arts studio has been very involved in doing women's martial arts since 1993. So
Mhm.
so it's been a we've been a long time in doing that as well too. Every chance that I got when I was growing up in my own training part part of the training in order to get your black belt was participating in those self-defense seminars and being becoming a leader in your community. And so it just was we were set up from day one to be able to do this, and now we actually have an opportunity to provide that to women in a larger capacity, which is really great.
So how many projects are you running at the moment, and how difficult was to set up a non-profit? I'm guessing you somewhere around charitable organization. How difficult that was in setting up in United States?
It was very difficult. So we actually I'm trying to think, we started the process in I was think late 22, and it took over a year and a half before they actually approved us.
Mhm,
Because self-defense nonprofits aren't normally a thing.
mhm,
Especially here in the United States. So there was a lot of questions. Even having the for-profit and trying to do a nonprofit, they wanted to make sure things weren't going to mix.
mhm,
And so we had a constant communication with the IRS with trying to build that correctly and
mhm,
answer whatever questions they may or may not have had, and how we were going to run it the way that we wanted to run it
mhm,
and do it legally. So, but it was about a year and a half before we actually got approved. After lots of questions, we finally got it. So it's a process.
mhm. Congratulations on setting that up and doing a great job. how
Thank you.
difficult for you is to kind of go and out there and grab those organization to work with you guys? Because for me, it feels in UK it's an uphill struggle. Or most of the organization try to protect their community and
Mhm.
don't want to allow you to come in and, or you might steal their students, right? Students
Mhm.
in quotes and the clients. And how's that? How are you finding that in the US?
So difficult. America is so competitive. It's so awful. I mean, we've been really lucky that the schools that we do interact with, they're from different styles. So we're
Mhm,
really lucky in that aspect. But as far as our local in our community, it's so difficult. And even
mhm,
then, we still have different styles. But trying to just compete and connect. I mean, we're all friendly with each other,
mhm,
but it's such a competitive aspect trying to get students and prove that you're the better choice. But
mhm,
I think that we speak for ourselves because the moment that people walk through our doors, they can feel it.
mhm,
Whereas I've heard from other places that they have a different experience when they do that. So we
mhm.
just try to stay true to ourselves, and we try to keep that positive environment and stick to what we know and what we do. And I hopefully we speak for ourselves by doing that. So, but it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
hard.
Yeah, but I think everybody's got a different field. They're looking for different things. So when your school is fitting them, the other school will not. But it opposing happens as well, right? People going somewhere else and they feel like, yes, this is where I belong. They won't necessarily feel in my school or your school comfortable. So
Yeah.
what led you to a committing a book?
Well, I have been writing since I was old enough to know how. So
Oh.
just don't read any of them. I'm sure they're still in notebooks in the basement, in my parents' basement. But I've always been very much into writing. And then I ended up writing a young adult fiction book in
Hmm.
2015. But so it's been a long journey in the writing process, but I really wanted to write something that would be impactful because
Hmm.
there's a lot of things that I found when I was doing research for our nonprofit, trying to grow a martial arts studio. There was a lot of things that I felt there were missing, especially from a female standpoint. And so I really wanted people to know that it doesn't matter where you come from, what
Hmm.
your body shape is, what you have going on in your life. Martial arts can help you in specific ways. You just have to be open to the journey. And so, I think that I was like, I finally get to use these talents that I've been doing since I was a kid. And so it was just kind of piecing them together and honestly having the courage to be able to share that because when you write a book, it's putting a piece of yourself out there. So it's very deep and impactful and close to my heart. So people know how important martial arts is.
Have when you've been deciding on the title of the book,
Mhm.
did it come straight in? You started with the title, or did you been? Because for myself, with my Anxious Black Belt book,
Mhm.
I wasn't sure to the very end
Mhm.
how to name it,
Mhm.
and you're trying to figure out something that is catchy, so
Mhm.
brings attention obviously from the standpoint of advertising and stuff like that, and something that really resonates with you and can share a little light into you as well. How was that process of becoming with a title and explain the title and more about
Yeah.
that stuff?
So the title was actually the really easy part.
Ah, all right.
But not any of my other books. So this one was very easy, but and so also I'll tell you why. So the title of our book is Pretty Flowers and Personal Power. And it actually happened when I was in a really dark place. I was really struggling with my ex-husband. I needed to go through a divorce, and I was like, I finally made that pivotal moment to come back to
Mm,
start training. And it actually has to do with my husband, Paul. So we had been friends for 16 years. We trained together back in the day, and so we've always stayed connected. And when I finally came back, when he had taken over the dojo, um, I asked for a private class first because I was really rusty.
Mm,
And so he looked at me and he asked me what happened. He's like, "You're not the
mm,
same person I trained with back in the day. What happened to you?" And so I unloaded where I was in my deep, dark hole mentally. And he looked at me and he said, "It's like you were a flower and someone took you and they put you in a pot and left you there to die." And
mm,
so that was the inspiration. And it was like that light bulb moment to like, hey, I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to do these things, and I'm going to get my life back on track to where I can be able to share that with other people. And so the title of the book was actually a huge inspiration, thanks to my husband, and my best friend for probably forever. So
mm.
that was the easy part.
So is the book targeting the women or is it for everybody? What's your kind of niche audience you trying to attract?
Well, I believe it can be for anybody. Though it's obviously written by a female and it has a lot of female driven things in there. Um, if anybody can read it. Because it has a lot of themes in there that kind of just remind you that life is hard. Everybody has a different kind of hard. It just depends on how you choose to overcome that in your life. And so, I mean, I have um, things about teaching. Being an instructor is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. So, and I feel like that something like that can resonate with anybody because we all have different teaching styles, learning from your students on how they learn. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, anything from health issues. I have health issues
Mm,
and how do you overcome that stuff? Also have ADHD, so that's also a struggle. So any of the common struggles people might not have the same thing happening, but they have things in their life that they can relate to that I'm sure they can use this as a pivotal thing to overcome.
mm. Where do you get, did you design the cover? Because you've got a very, very nice cover. Um, very, very pretty, flowery and stuff like that. Have you designed it yourself or did you use a program or you had somebody who helped you with this?
I actually designed the cover myself as well. So I used it was a very long process because I had this image in my brain of what I wanted.
Uh-huh.
And so I did a lot of AI and AI tweaking because I have Photoshop programs and things like that
Uh-huh.
too. So some of it's a little bit of AI and then some of it is a little bit of mixing other things together. But yeah, the cover I did myself as well too because I had a very specific image then
Mhm.
my brain and I wanted it to be very, very specific. So
No, very well done, very good job. It attracts, I've been scrolling, it's like, oh, what's that?
oh,
So,
thank you.
job well done. What is your writing process? Are you kind of a person who um designs the space around and time around writing? So you've got right, I need to write 2,000 words today, sitting down till I'm not gonna do it, or you kind of like a spontaneous, like myself. If I write like 15 minutes. I'm then getting distracted, walk away. Maybe next day I don't write anything. It just comes up spontaneously. But there are different approaches people have. What is your approach to writing?
So I actually got my master's in English and creative writing as well too. And it was the best degree ever. It was more on the lines of just for fun because I got to read so many different books and things like that. And so it was just a fun degree to have. But one of the things they that we did in one of the classes, are you a planner or are you a fly by the seat of your pants? So they call it a plantser if you have
All right.
both. So that's what I kind of like to consider myself as is sometimes I have this idea and this plan of what I want, but when it really comes down to I'm gonna have time to sit and write and then nothing comes to my brain. So
Hmm.
I definitely it's more of a half plan, half fly by the seat of my pants kind of situation. So because I might have something and I was like, oh, I really want to make sure that I mention that in there, or somebody might say something to me and I'm like, that's really an interesting thing to talk about because
Hmm.
most people might not know. So it's a little all over the place.
Yeah, for me, usually it's 3 o'clock at night. Just wake up.
Yes.
Oh, I've got the idea. Where's something to write? Where's my phone? Write it down so I don't forget.
I've
And
I've got notebooks and things on my phone. I've got pens everywhere. Things are everywhere. So yeah, I
Mm.
definitely understand that.
So have you had like did you plan it out first what chapters you're gonna have in a book, or is it just you wrote stuff down and then decided I'm gonna put chapter here, story there, whatever? How was that process for you?
So I topics that I wanted to touch on. I wanted to make sure that I touched on all of the important things in life, like how difficult is it being a woman in a head instructor position, owning a martial arts studio, and being able to somehow get your students to listen to you. So learning how to teach that stuff. I wanted to talk about working through health issues, any mental health issues. Family issues growing up, so any childhood trauma. So I had little things that I know I wanted to touch on, and then I had things specifically that I wanted to relate them to prove to people that, hey, even though I went through this childhood trauma, I used kata to be able to help me work through these things. And this is how I did it. So I had certain types of goals that I had for it in order to relate it to martial arts so people could actually start gaining a visual of what martial arts could be for them, especially if they have no idea what it is. So
Hmm.
I think that was important to be able to build those connections because we talk about it all the time about how martial arts can be a transformative journey, but I really wanted to help people understand that visually.
Mm, awesome. Um, so you went through a divorce, you went through a building up the community, being a owner of the dojo, as you just said. And I see more and more ladies getting involved in running a club, being an instructor, putting them out there. And I hear from many of my friends who are female instructors that there's still that kind of they need to prove their value. When a man are instructors, it's kind of given, oh, you're a man, you must know, you're
Mhm.
tough, you can fight. But the women are always kind of on a, ah, you're just a woman there, right? You have to prove to me. What advice would you give to young girls who are in the martial arts and just kind of reaching out towards the being instructor or maybe thinking to open their own academy or something like that? What steps would you advise them from things you learn through the
Mhm.
journey?
Be true to yourself is the number one thing. It's so hard to let other people change you, especially in martial arts, especially when you are battling so hard, all these stereotypes that happen. But the most important thing is to be true to yourself and to keep pushing forward. Because if I did that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today because it's rough out there and it's not just dealing with other men. It's dealing with other women too. I found other high ranking women that have a hard time with that too. But I felt that if you stay true to yourself and you keep pushing forward, that stuff will all filter out your life. So
Mhm,
the process to do it is not easy, but it's worth it in the end because I had a therapist tell me one time that whatever I'm struggling with, I try to give that back to my students. And that erases all of the other bad things that happen. And so I
mhm,
just focus on the things that I may not have had growing up or I might be struggling with. And I make sure that my students get that tenfold. So that way they know that I'm proud of them. They know that I believe in them. And they know that no matter what technique they may or may not be struggling with or concept they might be struggling with, I know that no matter what, they know that there's somebody in their corner. And so that's just me being true to myself. That's being true to our morals that we have that we teach here. And so that would be the best advice that I could tell them, and get a mentor that really could help you in the ways that you need. Because
mhm,
there's some mentors where they're helpful because they're kind and they can give you advice on what they've done. But every martial arts studio is different because it's based off of the the instructors and who owns it. And
mhm,
everybody's personality is different. So it's it's a process and not everything works the same way. Geographically, it doesn't work the same way. It depends on a lot of other factors. So there's no one size fits all when it comes to opening your
mhm,
own place. So it's constant learning is just like martial arts. It's constantly learning. You're just learning about business and how to work it in the way that you need to. But if you're true to yourself, then you will attract the students that will resonate with that. So it's a process, but it's worth it in the end.
Mm. You said that the women can be horrible as well towards the other women. Do you think is that the result of the hard competition with men they went through and they just kind of adopted that mentality and that approach, or do you think it's just the human nature?
Um, I think it can be both. I think
Mm,
that at least the women that I've interacted with, I think part of it is they have these experiences that have trained them that way.
mhm,
And then I think that they haven't done the full healing that they need in order to grow. So, because
mhm,
that will limit yourself. So we always talk about healing our inner child and things like that. And so I think we forget that we also have an inner teenager too. So those lower levels before we get to adults, sometimes they need a lot of extra care. And I think that the struggle of being in martial arts and trying to overcome all of those challenges, it does harden you to a certain extent.
mhm,
But I think if you have the right community, then they can help you overcome those things. Um, and that is again another whole process within
mhm,
itself. But I think some of it's personality. I think it's human nature. I think some of it is, a lot of healing that they need to do. I had if I had a foolproof system in how to work it, I guarantee you I will put another book out. But that was one of my main driving factors is when I first came to the dojo, I interacted with some other high-ranking women and I almost had to dumb myself down because their egos got in the way.
mhm,
And so and then there was constant things like, well, you're not as old as me, so you don't have enough experience to be teaching A, B, and C.
mhm,
Or so and so has better experience and we have to work harder than they do. So there was all these condescending things that happened. And I didn't really notice it at first because I just wanted to kind of fit back in. And I mean, as women, we want to be part of that. We want to embrace other women and we want to encourage these things. And so at first I was like, is this really happening? I wasn't
mhm,
sure. And so, but over time it was a process. And no matter what research I tried to find on, women having issues with other women in martial arts, it's something that we don't want to talk about because we want to still build up the community. So it's one of
mhm,
those like unspoken things. But I think it's important for us to talk about because I would much rather train with a bunch of men at this point than train with a bunch of women because I never know what I'm going to get,
mhm,
which is a complicated thought process. But um yeah, no, I think that women are very complicated emotionally and psychologically and trying to delve into that, each individual woman is different. So,
mhm,
it's just a process and me personally, I just try to stay positive. I try to just be myself and embrace them in the way that we need. But in the long run, they will either keep going or figure out that they have to grow on their own. So,
mhm. It's interesting for me because as you know, I'm teaching a lot of disabled people,
mhm,
and it seems to be that each community's got the same problems, right? So women with women don't get along. I've got a deaf person who said that she have more bullying from another deaf people because
mhm,
there are layers, right?
mhm,
She was born hearing and lost her hearing, so
mhm.
she's not proper deaf person in the opinion of the other deaf people. And it's like,
Yeah.
you don't use the sign language, then you're not with that group, you're not our other group. And I think it's just the human nature to, I don't
Mhm,
know, we kind of love bashing each other and putting each other down for, I don't know, I would have thought that, part of the community would bring people together up, but it's kind of tearing apart, and it's always a power play within that group. Like in men and all the politics is just regrouping, and we're gonna be with this one, so we're gonna put this one down, and then
mhm,
we're gonna try to get to the top. So it's interesting to see that
mhm,
women are having the same thing, Although what you said, I probably wouldn't get away with if I said that.
I know, and that's a whole nother, there's so
But
many layers to that. And I'm glad that we got into that conversation because it's so difficult and it's pe things that people don't talk about. They talk about the regular stereotypes of men in struggle because let's be honest, we bully men all the time, right?
mm,
So it's always a man problem, right? But it's not. I'm really glad that you brought up the human nature because this is like the first first piece of research that I'm like, oh, okay, that's something different to think about.
mhm,
Especially from the perspective of you dealing with people with disabilities and things like that.
mm,
And so I'm definitely gonna delve into that a little bit later and research that more. So I might have to pick your brain about it. But I would definitely say that it's a common struggle and it's so sad. But I think that if we keep continuing to be true to ourselves and create a positive environment where people can work through that, I think that it's a part of a bigger change that we can make.
mm. I think that's part of being true to yourself. I can see that definitely in a space of internet. When when internet kicked in, everybody was like hunting for really high quality
Hmm.
content and
Hmm.
so on. And now I see that, and speaking with people again, I've got speaking to a lot of people through the podcast and stuff, and
Hmm.
in on the show and off the show, and it seems to be that now people really searching for a kind of authentic, not necessarily perfect content. Uh,
Hmm.
Hey, I'm here. Perfect is far away from me as much as possible. Um, but people resonate more with authenticity, and I think that's transfer as well to your dojo, right? I don't try to be pretend that I am a $100 million facility that I'm gonna be training the actors and famous people. I am a in a rough gym who roof leaks. Hopefully, we're gonna fix it next month, and so on. But that resonates with people who actually want to come here and do the training and instead of being in a ventilated and air-conditioned unit that
Hmm.
is so much equipment that you don't know where to start.
Hmm.
That's a very long way to the question, how do you make sure that you staying authentic in your area and in your gym?
Wow. Well, first of all, I would just like to point out that our place is probably looks just like yours. So we just did some little remodeling updates and things like that, but it's definitely a slow moving process. Just don't look at our ceilings, so it will be
Oh,
fine. But so you're not alone. And I think that's part of I think that's the best part about martial arts in general is it brings it back to like that more traditional aspect and it
mm,
gives you an authentic experience, right? So you shouldn't yeah, is it cool to train in those facilities? But it's not for the average person. Like
mm,
people forget that people have different shapes and sizes and mentalities and all of the and disabilities and all of these things that happen. And if you're not 5'4", 100 pound person who can wear crop tops or wear
mm,
some, muscle tanks and all of these things it's hard to feel comfortable in a place like that. And
mm,
so staying authentic is just we're just open and honest with people. We just tell them, hey, we're a small business, but we really do care about us. We focus a lot more on the environment and making sure that you as the individual get the goals met that you are looking for. If those goals change, great, let us know. So, but we just focus on being transparent and have open conversations about things because that's part of the journey. You learn, I always thought that you learn more about a person when you're training with them than you do in the
mm,
outside world because we all wear these masks. And so in here, you can't really hide as much as you would think that you could, because we're, interacting physically, verbally, non-verbally, things like that. And so we just we have open conversations. We swear sometimes because sometimes we get frustrated with things, or if we're
mm,
doing self-defense, what would happen if somebody attacked you? You might do that. So,
mm,
it's just about being yourself, which it sounds like a simple concept, but it's really hard for people. So what we do from day one is we just have that open communication and we over communicate with people. So that way
mm,
they feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, I'm struggling with this problem today. So I might be a little off. It's okay. We'll work through it no matter what, because that's what we're doing. We're all here to learn. We're all here to grow. Just because we're the instructors and the owners of the place doesn't mean that we don't screw up. It doesn't mean that we're not learning from our students every day. So we let them see all of those parts of us in order to see that they're not alone and we can be that authentic parts of ourselves.
There's something really magical about suffering together, isn't it?
Yes.
Especially in, like if you are physical with other people, you
Mm,
close to other people, those kind of mental boundaries as well get dissolved,
mhm,
and very quickly you feel the real thing, struggle with the people,
mhm,
you see how people behave. We all do sit-ups and we all, you can't do anymore, but you're going through. It kind of brings people together and people start opening up. That's why I love martial arts as a community building exercise, because through struggle, people go so close to each other that you're becoming a family. I know it's a cliche, we are the family in martial arts, but I really believe in that. And it's kind of the- I said that to Christian Vedevar because he was thinking about doing something really challenging on his castle, and I said,
mhm,
Do it, because
mhm,
people gonna be suffering then, moan there, but the pain gonna goes away, but the memory of it stays, and then you
mhm,
got to bring community together because we overcome this horrible thing together. In
mhm.
5 years' time, it's gonna be one of the best experiences and best memories they have, right?
Absolutely.
Which lead into another question. How do you build a supportive community in your dojo?
Oh man.
Sorry.
It no, it's such a good question because I don't we just do it, which is like not a proper answer to the question, but
Mm,
we part of it is just being ourselves. When people come in, we don't talk to them with like some sales pitch. We're just like, hey, real talk. This is what we got going on. Um, we don't charge a bunch of extra money for things. These are our things. Everything's all listed out because we
mm,
all know that, we live in a world now that everything revolves around money. We only got one bathroom. We've only got two changing rooms. Like we're a small place, so you better get cozy.
mm,
So we're just really open from day one, and we tell them, hey, if you're struggling with something, just let us know. I mean, you don't have to tell us everything,
mm,
but sometimes you just can be like, listen, I had a really rough day at work, and I my kicks looked awful today, and it doesn't matter. We're still going to tell you you're doing great because that's not our job isn't to sit there and break you down.
mm,
Our job is to help you grow. That's why we have the martial arts studio. That's why we believe in it so much, is because it's about growing together. Um, my husband likes to say, did you learn something? And
mhm,
did you have fun? And that's how we make progress. And so that's how we kind of live through our dojo, is we make sure that people are feel empowered every single class. If they're struggling with something, that's okay. We'll work on it next time because that's what we do. So, um, and we do our very, very best to have those individual conversations because we're a smaller dojo, which is a plus and a minus because obviously we all want to
mm,
grow and be able to do it full time. It's good because we can have those mini conversations with people and help it grow.
mm.
So how that will happen as we continue to grow, I'm not sure. We're just gonna have to start setting office hours, but other than that, that's just part of our process is we want to make sure that we have those one-on-one conversations and build relationships with people because that's how you grow in martial art is building
Mm,
relationships with people.
mm,
So,
yeah.
um, so it's difficult, but we just stay true to ourselves and ask questions and tell them we're proud of them.
Very consistent. Stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the part of the book was you describing your struggles with kind of teaching students and that coaching process. Can you take us through what was your biggest challenge in kind of giving people tuition, and how did you overcome that, and what helped you to improve your skills?
Well, I'm still working on it, so it's not a foolproof process. So I struggle with teaching because I have ADHD. And so
Hmm.
it's hard enough for me to focus on some of the things in order to teach other people. And so part of the difficulties with teaching was being able to know and understand each student and how
Hmm.
they learn. Because nowadays, back in the day, back in the day when it came to martial arts, we just lined everybody up and said, either it's pass or fail, right? We put
Hmm.
you in a line, you either do it or it doesn't work out. Nowadays, it's a little bit harder to do that. So, trying to know what each individual student's needs are, how they learn, what are their struggles, because martial arts in the beginning is just relearning how to move your body and understand your left and right side and how to work them together. Um, so the hardest part is just knowing how to focus on one student, but still giving it to everybody. And it's a process. It's like my brain works a million miles a minute, and then it stops working when I focus on something, and then it's just chaos. It's like
Hmm.
there's a bunch of tabs open on my browser, and there's music playing somewhere. That's exactly what it feels like. So, and sometimes even though I'm in class and doing class and participating in it is a totally different story than trying to teach it. When I'm in there, I can shut my brain off. I can just do the techniques and it's great. But I have to know, okay, what students are struggling with, because we all know that some of them don't practice at home.
Hmm.
What practice do we need?
No, they
I
all
know.
practicing at home.
And and to this day, they still try to say, "Oh yeah, I did it," when they you can clearly see on the floor. So, which I love that, and I'm like, guys, come on, like we've been doing this a long time. We can tell. So it's just being able to divide and conquer your brain and how to
Mm.
get those things in a process. So, um. I wish I had a foolproof plan with it. Paul does an excellent job. He's sitting right over there and making faces at me. But he does a great job at teaching. I don't know what his magic secret ability is, but he just does an excellent job in being able to maintain everybody. And so honestly, I just try to go in and I try to think, what would Paul do? Because he has a really graceful way of presenting material and being able to maintain the class period and get somehow people get everything that they need out of it. So
Mm.
I just do my best. I go back to some of the basics that I learned when I was originally training, and then lots of prayers.
Yeah, but we're all different. I've got the same issues. In my head is always a chaos, right? So
Mhm,
people ask me, "Oh, how you been teaching this last week?" Well, I don't remember. It's never the same. So I kind of accepted that. Although, when
mhm,
I'm teaching seminars, I always worry that people might not like my stuff because I'm
mhm,
kind of chaotic. I don't have a structure. I'm not
mhm,
speaking in my native language, so it always makes some mistakes and stuff like
mhm.
that. And when I look like, for example, for Ian Abernathy, right? He's
Yeah.
super structured, well spoken, and he can
Mhm,
put that thoughts really clearly. When
mhm.
I'm listening to myself, it's like well, totally
Yes.
don't know what I said. I don't remember what I said, what I shown. And like
Mhm.
yesterday, we've been teaching quite a big seminar, and the guy said, "Oh, can we do a recap of everything what you done?" That was 3 hours ago. I can't remember what I've done.
Yeah.
So you have to tell me what I've done, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna see it. Because I don't have a kind of a fixed curriculum. We've
Mhm.
got like a floating curriculum, so the different applications are changing on experience and stuff like that. But how you guys making sure that your students following a syllabus or curriculum? Do you've got a like fixed curriculum, or you've got a floating one with changing? And can you get us through that?
Yeah. So we do have a fixed curriculum, but it's very kind of loose. So for the most part, for one rank, we always have our forms or our katas. So, and then we have specific techniques that will go along with the forms and the katas that just kind of reinforce those ideas. And then we have specific drills that we do per for each rank too. So because we're a self-defense school, we incorporate all of the self-defense ideas into that. So for some of the lower ranks, we might say, okay, how would you just escape from a grab if somebody was grabbing your wrists?
Mhm.
Pretty simple, right? So we have basic things, and then outside of those basic things, then they can explore some of those things if they find something different that they might like better, and or it might suit their body better and how they move. So we do have a fixed curriculum, but there are things because we're constantly growing and evolving and we're training in other styles, we might show them something. And so when they do their testing, there's an option where, is there anything that you'd like to show us that you might have learned throughout this process? And they have an opportunity to show some of that growth as well too. What did they learn? I mean, what concepts did you find might be cool? Is there something new that you or is like a light bulb moment for your training here? So we have a set curriculum, but some of the things that we have, they can kind of explore through that as well too, because it's part of their journey too. We're just a guide to help them through all the martial arts stuff, all of the things that are
Mhm.
required, but everything else, it's a personal journey.
So you said, and if I remember, you guys are your base was at least Paul's base was Shotokan. Is your base was Shotokan as well?
Hmm. Yep. So
So
I actually
how
started before Paul did. So,
oh okay. And now you are quite closely connected with Sensei Paul Enfield, right? How do you get through that transition? What was the kind of difficult points? What was easy? And what did you end up with?
oh, um, so I think Shotokan was a great base. And we were really lucky, because our instructor really believed in trying other things. He took a
Mhm.
little bit from different styles himself and kept a lot of the really, really old traditional Shotokan before it went and did all of the other things in order to make it easy for people with competitions and everything. So
Mhm.
I think we were really lucky, and having that base gave us the opportunity to be able to be good learners. Because then being a good learner is very difficult, especially after you get your black belt. You're like, I got my
Yeah.
black belt. I know everything, right? But people don't realize that that just tells you that, hey, you know the basics of that style. And so I think that having all of that, it gave us the opportunity to just be good learners. So having a transition into a different style is great because we can relate it to something that might be more familiar, and it makes it
Mhm.
easier to understand. Even though we're trying something different, it ends up working out. So it's just a new way of learning and
Mhm.
experiencing things, and it's the body only moves certain ways, so it's just how you can apply them in different ways. So, but it was a pretty easy transition. Um, Being able to do those things is both easy and hard. I think martial arts
Mm.
is a great way to explain that. It's an easy thing to understand, but then trying to get your body to do it, especially if you have gotten older and have certain struggles, then you're like, okay, I'm maybe not going to do that extra push up,
Mm.
um, I definitely think it's an easy concept to understand, and it's just again, just like regular martial arts, it's just practicing
Mhm.
and reiterating those concepts.
You mentioned that your book as well goes into the subject of mental health and overcoming obstacles. And in what way the karate impacted your mental health?
Oh. Um,
You always make me scared, like I'm asking too difficult question with that. Oh,
No, there's such good questions. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wrote this book because I just needed to get some things out.
uh-huh.
And I didn't actually expect people to be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. I love this." So
Mm.
I didn't have this expectation that people were gonna love it and it was gonna be some crazy bestseller, right? It was mostly just for me so that way I could get that out. And if somebody just happened to read it, I could be like, hey, this is what I went through. Read this and it might help you in your decision to maybe take martial arts. So there are and you're asking good questions. And what happens is my ADHD gets in the way and I have like 12 answers to this question because it's such a good question. Um, so martial arts is so good for your mental health. And I fully believe I've tried therapy before too, especially when I was in that really dark
Mm,
place. And it was great. My therapist opened my eyes to a lot of things and it's a really helpful experience. So I'm not knocking it all. But sometimes you need to build that connection between the physical and the mental.
mhm,
And I firmly believe that martial arts is great for what's it like somatic therapy.
mhm,
I did an article on that a couple months ago, and building that connection between mental and physical really helps you work through any mental struggles you might be having because we have all this pent up energy that happens. We hold
mhm,
tension in all of these places, and the only way to release them is to do the physical work. And so building that and letting that release happen, it takes away the focus on where you're feeling that throughout your body. And then you can start rationally and logically working through some of the main things that you're working through. So, say I really struggle with my family members, right?
mhm,
It's a lot better now. And so, if my mom ever watches this, I love you, mom. But it was a struggle growing up because I had two sisters and we were all it's the female the human things that we talked about earlier, so there was always this unspoken competition that happened, and so it was a struggle growing up. But I knew whenever I stepped out on the floor I could do two things. Number one, I get to exercise that energy that I was feeling and all that tension I was feeling from like a week of having to deal with all of this drama, and so I got to relax enough to be like, hey, this problem that I'm having isn't as big as I thought it was because I
mhm,
just got to release some of that energy. And so now I can rationally think through my problem and how I can solve it. Um, and that's just a small portion of it. But martial arts really can help mentally in so many ways just by helping you connect the dots. You know, how do you
mhm.
work through a problem? How do you learn how to think critically through any issues that you might be having, or just give your brain a break because let's be honest, sometimes we just need to have a brain break. And so I
Mhm.
think it can give you all of those things.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's nothing better than smashing pads to relieve your stresses, and that's the feedback from my students
Mhm.
who come into my classes that, there's really good feeling after that release of anger, whatever sits. You might not even realize that
Mhm.
you hold that tension, right? You think you're relaxed, but there's still, and being drained, we've got a saying in Poland that in a healthy body, healthy spirit, right? Or
Yes.
healthy mind. So
Mhm.
if you get that, mobilize the systems, and plus in martial arts, if somebody tries to take your head off, there's no space to thinking about anything else. So you've
Absolutely.
got that, half an hour of a break during the sparring from thinking about anything else. Um, so yeah, did you notice any changes in your students, and do you have like one maybe example of person who went dramatically change under influence of martial arts?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So it's really cool when you get to see those changes in your students. And everybody has a moment, and they always have those moments at different times. But one student in particular, she is amazing. She was actually a sexual assault survivor, and she had tried training in other martial arts studios, and none of them quite stuck. And it wasn't until recently she was like, honestly, the thing that sold me was I was the one that picked up the phone and called her back. And
Oh,
she's like,
okay.
awesome. There's a female that owns this dojo. This is going to be great. And she's one of our advanced belts now. She should be getting her black belt probably, I would say maybe the beginning of next year. She's like right on the cusp of getting that stuff. And so, um, but to see that change in her from day one where she didn't believe in herself and she just thought of herself as like this victim her entire life,
Hmm.
to that light bulb moment where she's just like, I went to the grocery store at night and didn't even think about it. Something that she had never done before in her life. And she was just like, she came in and she was like, oh my God, this happened. And it was amazing. And I didn't feel scared. And I felt good about myself. And I was just like, she's like, I could take somebody out at this point. So it was, It's a really great experience when someone just has the confidence and believes in themselves
Mm,
and works through all that stuff mentally because it's been a couple years and she's worked through that gradually. Certain things that took her some time to work through physically with certain types of self-defense techniques because that's what we
mhm,
specialize in. But she's now to a point to where she can handle that stuff no problem. As long as you communicate effectively, I have no doubts that she's going to go so far in life. And she already has. So, it's a great experience and a great motivation on those days that are really rough and you're just tired and you're like, oh, I don't want to teach class today. She's one of those students that helps motivate us to keep going because if anything, we know we've at least changed one person's life. So it's a big honor to do that.
mm. Yeah, that's what I was talking about with somebody the other day, that if you just change one person's life for better, it's worth it, right? And the other thing we actually spoke yesterday after a seminar is that there's nothing building more confidence in you than knowing that you can fuck up some people. You look around like, I can fuck you up, I can fuck you up, I can fuck you up. I'm feeling good. I don't have to do it, but I know that I'm able to do it. That builds the confidence and empowers people.
Absolutely. I'm gonna keep that because that was perfect. That's a perfect explanation. So, and it really does. So I definitely 100% agree with that.
I'm firmly believing that each person should write a book because everybody's got a story to tell, right? Um,
Absolutely.
what would you say to people to encourage them to write a book just like you did, that just like I myself did, because I had exactly the same thought process. Like nobody's gonna read that stuff. It's just for me to put it out there and have my moment of catharsis. And
Mhm.
I don't know how it was for you, but for me it was like a huge stone dropping off my shoulders. I don't know if that's the saying, but we're saying it's dropped from weight from the liver, but I don't know if that translates correctly to the English. But just relief that you put it out there, and now everybody knows, and there's
Mhm.
no need to hide it anymore.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I think I lost the track what I was saying, but hey ho, how would you encourage people to do the same?
It's okay. It's okay. I was following you and I thought it was great because when you really have those weights, it feels like it's everywhere on your body. It's not
Mm,
just your shoulders. So, I think anybody can relate to that for sure. But I try to encourage anybody and everybody to just even just write stuff down. So
mm,
um it's so relieving to just get it out of your body. That's
mm,
one of the best, again, goes back to martial arts and mental health. Getting that energy out of your body and getting those thoughts and things out is just a huge part of just healing and being able to grow as a person.
mm,
And so I would encourage anybody to write a book. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a book. It could be an article. It could be anything, just writing it down or even a journal. Because everyone has a story to tell, and everybody's story is unique and different, and you never know how that can help somebody else. Like, I know that there's probably a ton of people that have ADHD, but
mm,
do they have ADHD and try to teach people in a martial arts studio? Maybe, maybe not. But who knows? And we never know where our situation can help somebody. And so encouraging other people to be able to share their story is so important because you never know. It could be that one thing that helps somebody get through a difficult time or encourage them to start their own studio. You never know what could happen.
mm.
So it's inspiring.
That's great. Yeah, it is. Like I said, I try to encourage everybody who mentions to me they have enough of me. They mention, "Oh, I'm thinking about the book." It's like message every week. Did you write it yet? Get moving, write it. So I try to push people towards that. What's the future plans? More books?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I think this one is successful, and you look like you're overwhelmed with a amount of people being interested in it and stuff. So is that encouragement to write more?
Yeah, de it definitely is. Yeah, it was very an unexpected thing. Like I said, I was just trying to get my thoughts and feelings out and maybe have somebody realistically it's always mom. So
Mhm.
have mom buy my book for me and have her sign it, make me feel special. So yeah, no, it was definitely a shocking experience, but yeah, it definitely encourages me to write more things and be able to share that because I think there's a lot of things out there that especially from a woman's standpoint that pe we're not talking about, and I think that it's important that we do. You know, we need to talk about some of these struggles that we're having because some of us need to know that we're not alone.
For
So there
sure.
are people that are out there that can help you through this process and are not don't have egos in the way and want to learn and grow with you. So I think that's important for us to just continually share our stories and we live in a world now to where we have that ability to do it. So
Mm.
I definitely more books. Couldn't tell you right now. Probably more things about how cool it is to train with your husband, but other than that, I'm sure there will be more books. I just couldn't tell you right now.
Yeah, I think, it's very important to do those things like writing a book. It's something challenging,
Mhm,
both is like mentally because you have to write it, but as well putting yourself out there.
mhm,
And I'm finding that the most things like I'm challenging myself, the more the rewards I'm getting. I think you have a look on my latest course of Karate for Mental Health
mhm.
toolkit, right? And
Yes.
and this was very not very long process, only a
Mhm,
year or so. But more was like, if I'm happy with it, reading it again, looking at it again and putting it out there was really challenging, to be honest. But having that feedback, it sells really well. Having that feedback from people, yes, actually, this is a great stuff. You've done a good job. It elevates you and motivates you to do stuff more. So I think, if you're thinking about doing more books or whatever content you are, just do it. If
yeah.
something people won't like it, people won't buy it, people nobody cares really.
It's kind of
So,
like one of those Dr. Seuss quotes where it says, "Be who you are and say how you feel," because the people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter
mm,
don't mind. So the people who will
so.
support you will be there for you no matter what, and the people who won't, then oh well.
Mm.
So.
Wow. Yeah. Where the book is available, where we can grab the book from.
It is available on Amazon. So
Mhm.
that's the only current place I have it. I haven't done it in Kindle or anything yet, so you'll have to get a physical copy, but it's definitely worth it seeing it in person and it's nice to have a paper book in your hands. So I think
Yeah,
it
I
fit
love
well with the tradition of martial arts. So
I love paper books, and to be honest, my paper books selling much better than my Kindle.
Mhm. Yes.
So, but it's worth doing it. It's got just one click now, and
Yeah.
does it on its own. So,
Absolutely. And just to comment too, your book is fantastic.
thank you.
It was, I think that, I think Paul had said something, something about an interaction with you. And I was
Mm.
just like, I saw that you had a book out, so I bought it. And I was like, this is great. I'm like, if
Uh,
Les can do this, then I can do this. So you're already
That's
starting
yeah,
this chain of inspiring people to write a book. So I'm like, I
yeah.
could do that. I got all these skills. So I'm just trying to be cool like you, man.
Thank you. That was the idea, right? If
Mhm,
me being not educated, I remember my teacher said, Mr. Bubka, you will achieve nothing. And if I can publish the book, then truly anybody can do it, especially now with the tools. You know, my wife used to correct for me, so it took a long time. But now you got the chat GPT and stuff, and you just say, I write it in Polish, translate it, then I'm checking if it translated correctly what I want to be. And
mhm.
so much easier, you've got all the tools for free now to do it. So one less excuse gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, you got someone rooting for you in your corner over here for sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for a lovely conversation. I really encourage everybody to reach out and grab the book and, support fellow martial artists and people who support mental health in their students and make them rich so they can fix the roof. That's what we need. We need a fixing roof.
Absolutely. And I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure talking to you and being on your podcast. So you're inspiring other people. So I appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you very much for your time.